Phenomenology and learning. In an attempt to explain the theories of phenomenology, we will use this glass as an example. The glass is a phenomenon. We can describe its weight, color, and height, the material it's made of, and even the molecular composition. But that's the natural setting of the glass, and only the physical properties. We could also call it the positivistic way of viewing the glass. On the other hand, the glass is made for drinking. It's something we use at special varying occasions. In this perspective, it's more about how the phenomenon is existing in relation to us, and that would be a phenomenological view, our experiences with the phenomenon, in this case, a glass. When we view the glass in its natural setting, we only discuss the existing, meaning the object. But when we view the same object from a phenomenological perspective, we discuss the existing's existence. In this phrase lies both how the phenomenon exists and the experiences we have with the phenomenon. Let's talk a little about learning in a phenomenological perspective. Here we have a group of students. They're introduced to some learning material, our phenomenon. This could be a book. We assume the students read the book and doing so achieve the same knowledge. According to phenomenology, this assumption is wrong because our group of students should be viewed as different individuals. Instead of making assumptions, we should view it this way. Students are different. They each have different experiences, and for this reason, the learning material will appear different to each student depending on his or her background. These experiences, or means of taking action, is what Husserl called the life world and Heidegger called being in the world. In the light of this theory, we'll have to leave the common learning out of account. We must concede that we don't know what the students learn from what we put them through, so to speak. This has some common denominators with social constructivism, where the approach to learning is that it is something that is achieved through dialogue and communication with the students. We conclude that we as teachers never can teach anybody anything particular, but as an educator, you can offer yourself as a role model to pupils and students. One of the pitfalls of phenomenology is the broad spectrum of answers the educator can receive from any given assignment. An example of this spectrum could be based on the assignments that we as students do as part of this education. Just last week, we were asked to make models of the school of tomorrow based on Dewey's turn-of-the-century thoughts on the school and the society. We all had the same assignments, but as you can see, our models are very different in appearance. This, of course, is a result of our different points of departure, our different assumptions, and our varying preconditions. Our educator cannot expect us to deliver the same result, as we're pretty sure he didn't, because our results are the sum of our joint being in the world. In closing, we'll try to discuss whether phenomenological theory supports online learning. Hubert Dreyfus, who's a phenomenologist, writes in one of his books, "Instructors are a crucial part of learning." He doesn't think it's possible for a student to reach a high level of education if the student is only experiencing online learning. However, more and more educators adopt this type of teaching. Here are the 7 stages of learning that Dreyfus describes. Stage 1 is the lowest, 7 is the highest. Dreyfus suggests that only level 1 through 3 is possible, only employing online learning. The rest of the stages calls for face-to-face teaching. Our conclusion is that phenomenological theories tells us that the relation between the teacher and the student is very important. We can all relate to the feeling of having heard something different than our fellow students. Blended learning, a combination between face-to-face teaching and online learning, is probably the best solution. Simultaneously, it's important that the teacher practices thinking teaching in new and different ways. The challenge of online learning is that the teacher will have a harder time making sure that the goals of his or her teaching are achieved.